Welcome. You don't need to do anything right now. There is nowhere to go, and nothing to solve. Let your breathing slow, just as it is. Tonight, you'll hear a calm, gentle story, inspired by Pinocchio. A quiet tale of a small wooden boy, a kind old craftsman, and a world that moves slowly, without hurry. You can listen, or you can simply rest. Either way is perfectly fine. And when you're ready, the story can begin. Long ago, in a quiet village where nothing ever seemed to hurry, there lived an old woodcarver named Geppetto. The village rested between gentle hills and narrow paths, where footsteps were soft and voices were low, especially as evening slowly arrived. Geppetto's small workshop stood at the edge of the village. It was a simple place, filled with the calm scent of pine wood and the quiet warmth of years gone by. Inside, time moved differently. Sunlight lingered on the wooden floor, stretching across the room before slowly fading into dusk. Nothing rushed it away. Geppetto worked there every day, not to finish quickly, not to meet any deadline, but simply to enjoy the steady rhythm of his hands. On this particular evening, as the village settled into stillness, Geppetto selected a smooth piece of wood and placed it gently on his workbench. He did not know exactly why he chose it. It simply felt right. He ran his fingers along its surface, feeling the grain, the quiet strength within it. The room was silent, except for the soft sound of his breathing. Slow, easy, natural. He began to carve, not quickly, not with effort. Each movement followed the last, steady and unforced, as if the wood itself were guiding his hands. Outside, the sky darkened gradually. Windows across the village glowed with warm light, one by one, until the night felt complete. Inside the workshop, a small figure slowly began to take shape. First, gentle curves, then simple lines. Arms formed softly, legs followed, and a quiet, peaceful face emerged from the wood. Geppetto paused often, not to correct mistakes, but to rest. He stepped back, looked at his work, and allowed himself to smile. The wooden boy lay quietly on the bench, still and calm, as if resting rather than waiting. Geppetto spoke softly then, almost as if he were afraid to disturb the silence. He said it would be nice not to feel alone anymore. His voice faded into the room, and the room held it gently. No answer came. No sound followed. Only stillness. The night deepened outside, cool and peaceful, and the workshop seemed to breathe along with him. Geppetto covered the wooden figure carefully, as one might cover a sleeping child, and turned down the lamp. The light dimmed. Shadows softened. The world slowed even further. And there, in the quiet of the workshop, the wooden boy rested peacefully, unaware of the gentle journey that would unfold in its own time. Nothing more was needed. Nothing needed to happen yet. Only rest. Only calm. That evening, the village grew quiet once again. Shops closed their wooden doors slowly. Lamps were lit one by one, and the narrow streets softened into shadow, Inside the workshop, Geppetto moved carefully, as though the night itself were something fragile that could be disturbed by careless motion. He swept the floor gently, the sound of the broom steady and rhythmic. Each stroke followed the last, unhurried, predictable. The room felt warm and familiar, filled with the quiet comfort of routine. Geppetto paused near the workbench and lifted the cloth that rested over the wooden boy. The carved figure lay exactly as before, still, calm, silent. And yet, the space around it felt different. The air seemed heavier, as though it were holding something unseen. Geppetto did not question the feeling. He simply accepted it, the way one accepts the calm before sleep. He pulled a chair closer and sat down, allowing his body to rest. The wooden boy remained motionless, its carved face peaceful, its small hands resting quietly at its sides. Geppetto reached out and placed his palm lightly on the wood. The surface was cool, smooth beneath his fingers. He breathed slowly, in and out. The workshop was silent now, except for the soft crackle of the lamp and the faint sound of wind passing outside. Geppetto spoke again, his voice low and gentle. He spoke of the village at night, of how the streets looked under moonlight, of how the hills seemed to breathe as the world slowed. He spoke without expectation, without pause, as if simply filling the room with sound made the quiet more complete. Time moved forward, softly, and without notice. Outside, the moon climbed higher, casting pale light through the window. It rested across the workbench, touching the wooden boy's face with a calm, silver glow. Geppetto watched closely. For a moment he thought he noticed something. Not movement, not sound. Just a subtle warmth beneath his hand, so faint it could have been imagined. He did not pull away. Instead, he smiled. The feeling passed, or perhaps it settled deeper, becoming part of the night itself. Geppetto stood and covered the wooden boy once more, moving with care, as though the figure were already asleep. He extinguished the lamp slowly, allowing darkness to fill the room gradually, never all at once. The workshop rested. Outside, the village slept, and beneath the cloth, the wooden boy remained still, surrounded by silence, held by calm, as the night continued its gentle watch. Nothing stirred. Nothing changed. Only the quiet deepened, preparing the way for what would come in its own time, without hurry. Morning arrived gently in the village, not suddenly, not with noise, but slowly, as light found its way through narrow streets and rested softly on rooftops and windows. Inside the workshop, the air remained still and quiet, as if the night had not fully let go. Geppetto woke with the soft creak of the wooden floor beneath his feet. He moved carefully, not wanting to disturb the calm that still lingered in the room. The wooden boy rested where he had been left, unchanged, peaceful, silent. Sunlight touched the edges of the workbench, revealing the gentle details of the carved figure, the smooth curve of the face, the simple shape of the hands, the quiet expression that seemed almost thoughtful. Geppetto paused there for a moment, just looking. There was no rush to begin the day, no task waiting to be completed, only the soft passing of time. He prepared his morning slowly, moving through familiar motions that required no thought. The kettle warmed. The cup rested between his hands. Steam rose gently into the air, then faded. Outside, the village began to wake. Footsteps passed by the workshop, light and unhurried. Voices drifted through the open window, low and calm, never sharp or loud. The world felt balanced. Geppetto returned to the workbench and uncovered the wooden boy once more. The light now revealed something different. Not movement, not sound, but a presence. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, yet unmistakable. The wooden boy seemed to belong there, as if the room had been shaped around him rather than the other way around. Geppetto rested his hands on the edge of the bench, breathing slowly, in and out. He spoke softly, not expecting an answer. He spoke of simple things, of the weather, of the village, of days that passed quietly and nights that brought rest. His words settled into the room and stayed there, held gently by the wooden walls. Still, the wooden boy remained silent. Time passed. The sun climbed higher, then softened again, its warmth never overwhelming. Dust moved lazily through the air, floating without purpose, without direction. Geppetto continued his work, making small adjustments, tiny refinements that required patience rather than effort. Each movement was slow, deliberate, kind. He smoothed the wood carefully, following the natural grain, never forcing it to become something else. The wooden boy seemed to rest more deeply with each passing moment, as if the quiet attention itself were enough. Hours moved by unnoticed. The village settled once more into its gentle rhythm, the same as always. Nothing extraordinary happened. And yet something subtle had begun. Not an event, not a change, but a quiet beginning. As the afternoon faded, the workshop filled again with soft shadows. Geppetto stepped back and allowed himself to rest. The wooden boy lay still, exactly as before, yet somehow different, as if listening, as if waiting, not for action, but for time itself. The room grew quiet again. No expectations, no urgency. Only the steady calm of a day unfolding exactly as it should. And in that calm, the story continued to rest, patient and unhurried, ready to move forward only when the moment felt right. The night passed quietly, as nights often do in places untouched by hurry. When morning arrived again, it did so gently, with pale light slipping through the narrow window and resting softly on the walls of the workshop. Geppetto woke slowly. There was no alarm, no sudden sound, only the familiar stillness that greeted him each day. He remained seated on the edge of his bed for a moment, breathing evenly, allowing the day to unfold at its own pace. The workshop felt calm, unchanged. The wooden boy rested where he had been left, covered carefully, undisturbed. Geppetto prepared his morning as he always did. Water warmed slowly. Bread was sliced carefully. Each movement followed the next without thought or effort. Outside, the village stirred. A door opened somewhere down the street. Footsteps echoed briefly, then faded. The world was awake, but not yet busy. Geppetto returned to the workbench and lifted the cloth once more. The wooden boy lay still, yet something felt different again. The air around the figure seemed warmer, not in temperature, but in presence. Geppetto leaned closer, examining the smooth curves of the carving, the gentle expression, frozen in wood. He adjusted a small detail near the hands, then stepped back, satisfied. Not because the work was finished, but because it felt complete enough for now. He spoke quietly, as though continuing a conversation begun long ago. He spoke of simple plans for the day, of errands, of meals, of the comfort found in familiar routines. The wooden boy listened in silence. Time passed unnoticed. The sun climbed higher, casting steady light across the room. Dust floated lazily through the air, moving without direction. Geppetto sat nearby, his hands resting in his lap, his breathing slow and relaxed. He felt content. There was no loneliness in the room now, only quiet companionship. The wooden boy remained still, yet the sense of presence lingered, soft and reassuring. As afternoon approached, the light shifted again, and the workshop took on a warmer tone. Geppetto closed his eyes briefly, allowing himself to rest. The village continued its gentle rhythm outside, unchanged, unaware. Inside the workshop, nothing extraordinary happened. No sudden movement, no sound. Only the steady unfolding of time, holding both the old craftsman and the wooden boy in a shared calm. And in that calm, something unseen continued to grow, quietly, patiently, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. As the day moved gently toward evening, the village softened once more. Shadows stretched across the narrow streets, and the air cooled gradually, as though the world itself were slowing its breath. Inside the workshop, the light shifted into warmer tones. The sun rested low in the sky, casting long shapes across the wooden floor and touching the workbench with a quiet glow. Geppetto moved slowly, closing the window just enough to keep the evening air calm and steady. The room felt balanced, neither warm nor cold, neither bright nor dark. He returned to the wooden boy and uncovered him again. The figure lay peacefully, unchanged in form, yet familiar in a way that felt deeper than sight. Geppetto sat nearby and rested his hands on his knees. He did not speak right away. There was no need. The silence felt complete. Minutes passed, or perhaps longer. Time had little meaning here. The faint sounds of the village drifted through the walls. Distant voices. A door closing softly. The muted rhythm of life settling down for the night. Geppetto breathed slowly, his chest rising and falling without effort. In and out. He noticed then how natural it felt to sit beside the wooden boy, as though he were no longer alone in the room, not watched, not followed, simply accompanied. He spoke again, his voice low and steady. He spoke of the seasons, of winters that arrived quietly, of summers that lingered without rushing. He spoke of days that did not need to be remembered, because they were gentle enough to leave peace behind them. The wooden boy remained still, yet the room seemed to listen. As night settled further, Geppetto lit a single lamp. The flame flickered softly, casting calm shadows that moved slowly across the walls. The workshop felt smaller now, more intimate, wrapped in quiet. Geppetto covered the wooden boy carefully once more, his movements thoughtful and kind. He stood and stretched slowly, then turned toward his bed. Before lying down, he paused. He looked back once more at the workbench, at the still figure resting beneath the cloth. A sense of calm filled him, deep and reassuring. Nothing more needed to be done tonight. He lay down and closed his eyes, allowing the sounds of the night to settle around him. The workshop rested, the village slept, and beneath the cloth, the wooden boy remained silent, held within the steady calm of the room as the night deepened, preparing the way for what would come next. The night held the workshop gently. Outside, the village slept in complete stillness, wrapped in darkness and quiet air. Inside, the room felt calm and steady, as though nothing could disturb it. Geppetto lay resting, his breathing slow and even. The lamp had dimmed, and the shadows no longer moved. Time passed without measure. Then, in the deepest part of the night, something subtle shifted. Not a sound, not a movement, only a quiet warmth slowly filling the room. The wooden boy remained beneath the cloth, still and silent, yet surrounded by a sense of gentle presence. The air felt softer now, as though it were holding its breath. And in this calm moment, the story itself begins to slow, inviting you to slow as well. Guided breathing pause. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Let the air move gently into your chest. No need to hurry. Hold for just a moment. Now breathe out slowly through your mouth. Long, easy, unforced. Again. Breathe in, steady, comfortable. And breathe out, soft, relaxed. Allow your shoulders to release. Let your jaw loosen. Let your hands rest heavier wherever they are. There's nothing you need to do, nothing you need to follow. You are safe to rest here. With each breath out, imagine the room growing quieter, as if the night itself were settling deeper. In and out. Good. The quiet returns fully to the workshop. The warmth remains, steady and calm. Geppetto stirs slightly in his sleep, then relaxes again, his body sinking comfortably into rest. The wooden boy lies beneath the cloth, surrounded by stillness. Nothing rushes the moment. Nothing interrupts it. The night continues to hold everything gently in place, allowing rest to deepen naturally. And as the calm settles once more, the story prepares to move forward, slowly, patiently, without effort. Slowly, the night began to soften. Not all at once, not suddenly, but in the quiet way that mornings always arrive when nothing is rushed. a pale light found its way through the small workshop window, resting gently on the walls, touching the wooden floor without demand. The air felt cool and fresh, carrying the promise of a new day while still holding the calm of the night. Geppetto remained asleep, his breathing steady and relaxed. The room seemed to protect his rest, keeping the world outside at a respectful distance. On the workbench, beneath the cloth, the wooden boy rested as he always had. Still, silent. Yet the warmth that had filled the room during the night had not faded. It lingered, quiet and patient. As the light grew stronger, dust motes appeared once more in the air, floating slowly, without purpose or direction. The workshop felt awake now, but unoccupied, as though it were waiting. The cloth covering the wooden boy shifted slightly. Not enough to be seen clearly, not enough to cause sound, but just enough to suggest change. The wooden figure beneath remained calm, held by the steady presence that surrounded him. Geppetto stirred gently, turning in his sleep, then settled again. Outside, the village began to breathe. A distant door opened. A soft footstep echoed briefly. Somewhere, a bird called quietly. Inside, the light continued to move, touching the workbench, more fully now, revealing the carved lines beneath the cloth. The wooden boy rested within that light, as if being gently invited into the day. No sudden movement followed. No sound broke the stillness. Only the steady unfolding of morning, wrapping the workshop in warmth and clarity. Time passed slowly. The world felt balanced. And in that balance, something unseen continued to awaken, not with urgency, not with noise, but with calm intention. The wooden boy remained still, yet closer now to becoming something more. The room held its breath, not in anticipation, but in quiet trust. And as the day continued to rise, the story moved forward gently, carried by light, held by calm, without ever disturbing the peace.
Take a slow breath in and a long breath out. Nothing changes. Nothing moves. You remain here, resting, breathing, calm.
The morning settled fully into the village. Light filled the workshop now, warm and steady, resting across the wooden floor and climbing slowly along the walls. The air felt clear, refreshed by the quiet hours that had passed. Geppetto opened his eyes. He didn't rise at once. He remained still, listening. There was no urgency in the day, no sound calling him forward. Only the familiar calm of the room. He sat up slowly and stretched, letting his body wake at its own pace. The workshop greeted him just as it always had. Quiet, welcoming, unchanged. Geppetto turned toward the workbench. The cloth still rested over the wooden boy, smooth and undisturbed. Yet something felt different again, subtle and gentle, like warmth lingering after a fire has gone out. He stood and approached carefully, his steps soft against the floor. As he lifted the cloth, Sunlight fell fully across the wooden figure. The boy lay there, peaceful and still, his carved face touched by light. The smooth lines of the wood seemed softer now, almost warm beneath Geppetto's gaze. Geppetto leaned closer. He placed his hand lightly against the wooden chest. It felt warm. Not warm like sunlit wood, not warm like a lamp, but warm like something quietly alive. Geppetto did not pull his hand away. He breathed slowly, allowing the moment to remain exactly as it was. In and out. The workshop seemed to hold its breath with him. The wooden boy remained still, yet the warmth continued, steady and calm. There was no sudden movement, no sound to mark the change, only presence. Geppetto spoke softly, his voice barely above a whisper. He said the boy's name, not loudly, not with expectation, but gently, as though greeting someone waking from a peaceful sleep. The room remained quiet. Then, very slowly, the wooden boy's fingers shifted. Not a full movement. Not enough to startle. Just a subtle change, like wood settling. Geppetto's eyes softened. His breath slowed even more. The wooden boy rested again, still and calm, as if that small motion were enough for now. The moment did not ask for more. Outside, the village continued its gentle rhythm. Voices passed by. Light moved steadily across the street. Inside the workshop, something had begun. Not with excitement, not with sound, but with quiet certainty. Geppetto stepped back slightly and allowed the space to breathe. He did not rush forward. He did not speak again. Some things, he knew, needed time. The wooden boy lay peacefully beneath the light, held by warmth and calm, resting at the edge of waking. And as the morning continued, the workshop remained a place of gentle beginnings, where change arrived slowly, without disturbance, exactly when it was ready. The day continued quietly, just as it had begun. Light moved slowly through the workshop, shifting almost without notice. Outside, the village followed its familiar rhythm, unchanged and unhurried. Inside, Geppetto remained near the workbench, calm and attentive. He did not speak. He did not touch the wooden boy again. He simply allowed the moment to exist. The warmth remained. Steady. Gentle. Present. The wooden boy lay peacefully beneath the light, neither fully asleep nor fully awake, resting in a place between stillness and becoming. Geppetto felt no need to hurry what was unfolding. Some things, he understood, arrived only when allowed to move at their own pace. He sat nearby and rested his hands in his lap, breathing slowly, evenly. The workshop seemed to breathe with him, its wooden walls holding the quiet like a soft promise. Time passed, perhaps minutes, perhaps longer. The world did not require attention. Outside, the sounds of the village softened again, as afternoon leaned gently toward evening. Shadows lengthened. Light grew warmer, then lower. Inside, the wooden boy remained calm, his presence settled, untroubled. Geppetto rose at last and moved slowly through the workshop, attending to small tasks with care. He prepared a simple meal. He tidied the space lightly, never disturbing the peace that had settled there. The wooden boy rested. As evening arrived once more, the workshop filled with the soft glow of a single lamp. Its light flickered gently, stretching shadows across the floor in long, quiet patterns. Geppetto paused and looked once more at the workbench. There was no doubt now. Something had begun. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in the only way that truly lasting things ever do. Quietly. He covered the wooden boy carefully, his movements thoughtful and kind, as one might tuck in a sleeping child. Then Geppetto turned down the lamp and allowed the room to darken slowly, never all at once. The workshop rested, the village rested, and the story itself began to settle, easing gently toward stillness. Now, as the wooden boy rests, you may rest as well. There is nothing left to follow, nothing left to imagine. The warmth remains. The quiet remains. Breathing slows. Thoughts soften. The world moves gently on, without asking anything of you. And just as the workshop holds its calm through the night, you may drift now, slowly, comfortably, into deep, peaceful rest. Good night.